Hey parents, Carmine here with your video review of Starcraft 2, Heart of the Swarm.
Never stop until Minsk is dead.
Starcraft is one of the most well-known PC franchises currently on the market. Starcraft 2, Heart of the Swarm is the second part in a trilogy featuring each of the three Starcraft races in a complex, heated battle for survival. Heart of the Swarm focuses on the insect-like Zerg race as their leader gets her revenge against the man who betrayed her and made her into a monster.
Of course.
Violence is the only factor in this game. While the bird's-eye command view that players will use throughout the game will negate most of the impact of the violence, Heart of the Swarm features some very obvious blood and gore. What makes it more obvious than the previous StarCraft 2 title is that the player will be controlling the Zerg in almost every mission. While all the Protoss and half of the Terran units are almost completely mechanically or energy-based, which significantly reduces the amount of blood and gore present in their deaths, the Zerg are all biological. When a Protoss unit dies, it explodes into a small fireball of metal. When a Zerg unit dies, it pops or dissolves into blood and bits. Since the player is constantly controlling and commanding Zerg units, it will be very difficult for any player to miss the bloody mayhem that results from combat with the Zerg. The amount of blood and gore varies depending on the size of the unit. Large units, especially certain level-specific boss units, will emit a significant amount of blood and gore on death, but most of the units the player will be using and fighting against are small enough that the blood is barely noticeable and fades very quickly. But before I make it sound like this game is nothing but blood and gore, I am compelled to mention that almost all StarCraft players will not be focusing on the results of combat, but rather looking at combat on a larger scale. Instead of seeing a Zergling die, players will be concerned with how many Zerglings they have left and how large a force the enemy has. Units are lumped into forces, which makes it easier to overlook the loss of any single unit in combat engagements. Additionally, the better StarCraft players are constantly jumping around the battlefield giving new orders to units. These players hardly ever see the graphics on the screen, instead treating the game like a continuously playing game of chess.
No time like the present.
Because the blood and gore in this game is mitigated by the commander view and the real-time strategy elements, we gave this game a recommended age of 14 years old. For the full written review, including the extra categories, log on to SideStoryGames.com.